I don't know about you guys, but for some reason, I was under the impression that this life was supposed to be so hard. And anytime things were presented to me that could have made life easier, like for example, just following whatever it is that my heart truly wanted, I would like resist it and I would like fight against it. And you know what? I feel like I spent my entire life fighting everything that was just like always there. Obviously, any kind of change feels like a massive threat to our nervous system, and our mind is always doing its best to try and keep everything the same in almost like a homeostasis, thinking that like as long as everything is known and familiar, then we're safe and it's all good. A lot of the families that we were raised in, the culture, the society as a whole has been living this life with like this huge mask over their head that has tricked them into thinking that this is like a scary, dangerous world that we live in. Obviously, that is super impacted by media and all that other poop. So moving away from that fear, negative mindset into actually developing like a trust for life is a practice. And it's something that is going to take like a conscious, proactive approach by us, where we need to train ourselves to be able to attach new meanings to things that don't have the lens of fear, that instead have the lens of love, and to perceive everything as being something that we chose on some level in order to benefit us in some way. And if you're in the middle of something really tough and it's like so hard to find a meaning that is going to be beneficial, and it's like, how can I find something good about this? Like it feels impossible. Then what I usually like to go to for those really hectic things is just reminding myself that this experience, no matter how tough and messed up it is probably just another way that my soul wanted to grow and to understand its own potential, to stretch out and expand, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's a go-to whenever things get really hard. That's a meaning that we can place onto things. And aside from that, like, each morning when we get up in the morning, we need to be proactive and we need to think about all of the things that are so wonderful about this life. Otherwise, we'll get sucked right back into that darkness that's of course also there. It's like both exist simultaneously, and it's just up to us to decide which world we're going to step into. You know what I mean? We can either step into the world we've lived in all these decades and centuries of fear and destruction and gotta hide and gotta stay small and gotta stay the same, or we can decide to let go of that, knowing that there's another reality that's actually available to us and we can step into that one. One easy way to step into that is through gratitude. Sometimes it's hard to feel gratitude when you're going through so much crap that it's like, how the heck am I supposed to find anything to feel grateful for? In those moments, what I recommend is just firstly coming back to the exact moment that you're in, getting as present as you can by just coming back into your body. And then you spend a few moments just focusing on your breath so that you're becoming as still as you possibly can. And then once you become still, what I like to do is just focus around my chest area, my heart. And when I do that, I don't think about like the things that are really big that I'm so grateful for, like my house or my family. Like instead, I think about the little things, because I find that those little things are kind of like really switch you out of that fear place into the love. So little things like, for example, like, I don't know, this is so silly, but just like, thank gosh I have dishwashing liquid to be able to clean my dishes properly, otherwise they would be gross, just little things that we usually miss. That kind of helps to shift you from that to that. And the more we practice that, it ends up becoming our norm. And then you know what? Like we end up experiencing an entire different reality. Like it just changes everything. So when I ended up moving to this city by myself, I was all of a sudden had gone from having everything really to having nothing. It felt like, obviously I had a lot. I had my health, I had myself, I had a lot of amazing things, but it felt like I had nothing. You know what I mean? Like after you've kind of let go of all your attachments and everything that provided you comfort for so long, you end up feeling like, oh my God, you're just like this like weird, like vulnerable person out in the wild by herself. Like that's what it felt like. Also, because I didn't have any distractions, I was able to notice the way my mind would just so automatically just slide into the negativity, and it would find things to be negative about and to complain about. And it was so interesting because it was like, aside from grieving everything in the moment, there wasn't technically anything that, was wrong, if that makes sense. And that's when I came to the realization that like nothing is ever actually wrong. It's only the stories that the mind places on things to make us think that it's wrong. Otherwise, we can find what's right in everything. And I think that's what is meant through all these years and centuries of people talking about the light and the dark, good and bad, heaven and hell. Like, it's just this. It's just deciding and choosing which lens you want to put on and the kind of life you end up wanting to live, But the thing is, like, that other reality, the reality of love, the reality of just beauty is available, but it takes, having to practice some of these things, because it's been years and years and years of just thinking one way, and not just you, but your family, your culture, your society, generation after generation, and just like life is hard, life sucks. Like, I get it, like, like it feels like that for sure until you are able to realize that it doesn't have to, and start behaving and seeing as though it doesn't, literally looking for the reasons that that's not true, if that makes sense. So if you're someone who can't help but to always orient negatively and see things in a negative light, like, I understand, trust me, like, I remember I used to like annoy everyone because every time I would go out for dinner, instead of enjoying the meal and being grateful for it, I would just talk about how I wish I got something else and it wasn't good enough and la la la. Like, my mind would just like always find the negative. So if you're someone who experiences life in this way, just know that, like, firstly, it's not you. It's not who you actually are. Like, it's just programs and patterns of the mind, but the mind isn't who you are. You're beyond the mind. You're the one that's even aware of the way that you're thinking, So it's not you. It's just habits, programs, things that are being passed down. What I'm trying to say essentially is that it's not relevant, and it's not relevant to your identity and who you are. It doesn't have to be. You can change it. And it's not about like every moment of the day just monitoring your thoughts and making sure they're super positive and, getting mad at yourself when they're not. You're going to know that like the mind's going to be negative. It's literally how the mind is wired. The mind needs to be able to detect things that are wrong, to be able to keep us safe. So don't expect it to be super positive, like, obviously we will get to that, but it might not be like that for a while. But so instead of like wanting it to be positive and getting mad at it if it's not, all you have to do is just notice when it is being negative and realize that whatever the mind is saying isn't necessarily the truth. It's not necessarily the reality. So once you recognize that, you kind of create a separation between you, your consciousness, and the negative mind. So realizing it's two separate things. And then when you notice it, to really expand on that separation, you can just kind of label it. So for example, you could just notice like, oh, my mind is being negative right now. Okay, there's my mind being negative again. But then just allowing it and going on about your day, not listening to it, not believing it, and not getting sucked away by it. And then you consciously can choose to then instead find the things that are actually really wonderful, and there's always something, like even as simple as the fact that we have ears right now that can listen to this. You know what I mean? Like, and then just like feeling into that, like really feeling into it, not just saying it, but feeling into it. Anyway, I hope this hasn't been annoying, because trust me, I know that like when people say like just be grateful, like it can be really frustrating sometimes, especially when your life isn't necessarily going the way you thought it would, or if you're just not in the best place. But like the reason I provide this advice is because I know that it's kind of like the gateway and the door from the negative mind to love, really, and freedom, So yeah, give it a try, and yeah, I would love to hear how you go. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for listening. Bye.